I've been living the van life for over a year now. Freedom, solitude, the open road stretching endlessly ahead of me. That was the dream. It was everything I wanted until last night. Some kids knocked on my window. I know how it sounds. Probably just some lost campers, right? Maybe a prank. But listen, I don't know how long I have. My battery's at 14%, and I don't dare start the van. If I do, they'll hear me. I know this sounds paranoid, but you didn't see them. Or maybe you have. If you have, tell me. I need to know how to get out of here. I travel alone. I document it. My channel isn't big yet, just a few thousand subscribers, but I post regularly off-grid campsites, van conversions, solo travel tips, that kind of thing. I stay out of cities, away from people. The further I am from civilization, the safer I feel. Or I should say, used to feel. Tonight, I'm parked miles away from the nearest town, deep in the Idaho wilderness. No traffic, no trails. If you screamed out here, no one would hear you. The perfect isolation until the knock came. It wasn't a pounding, not the heavy fist of some drunk trying to get in. It was a single soft tap, deliberate, gentle, knuckles against glass. I froze. Ein Uhr nachts. The woods were silent. No wind, no animals. My van is unmarked. No stickers, no signs. I never share my exact location until after I leave a site, just to stay safe. So how did someone find me? And more importantly, how did they get this close without triggering my motion lights? Another knock. I reached for my phone. My stupid fingers fumbled and it hit the floor mat. The sound was deafening in the stillness. My breath caught in my throat as I reached down, fingers grasping blindly. And then I saw it. A face, pressed against the glass. Pale skin, dark hair, wide, unblinking eyes. Something was wrong. My mind told me it was a child, but the longer I stared, the more my stomach turned. The pupils, they were missing. Just black, empty voids. The knock came again. I snapped my head around, and my stomach dropped. A second one. A little girl standing near my back doors. The same dark hair. The same lifeless stare. I don't scare easy. I've slept in truck stops where men tried breaking into my van. I've camped alone in places where coyotes circled all night long. But this was different. They weren't moving. They weren't speaking. Just watching. I kept my hand low, fumbling for my knife, fingers numb with adrenaline. I know how it sounds. I know, but you weren't there. You didn't feel it. Something was wrong. Then the boy at the window spoke. Let us in. 3 words. No emotion. No infliction. Just a flat demand. I shook my head. The girl knocked again. Harder. I heard the doors rattle. Let us in. I don't know how long I sat there, barely breathing. I knew, deep in my bones, I knew that if I unlocked that door, I wouldn't be able to close it again. And they stepped back. And just like that, the darkness swallowed them whole. For the briefest moment, I felt relief. But then, I whipped my head to the driver's side. A third one, a little older, taller, maybe 12, standing inches from the door. But this one was smiling. The handle rattled. Let us in. My heart slammed against my ribs. I don't remember grabbing my keys, but suddenly they were in my hands. I flipped the ignition. The dashboard lit up. My fingers turned the key. The engine didn't start. I turned the key again. Nothing. Battery's fine. Gas tank's full. It started fine earlier today. But now, in this moment, it's dead. And the kids are still there. Staring. Smiling. I reach for my phone. No service. Then the tapping starts again. Every window. Every door. A slow, measured rhythm. Knock. 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 I must have blacked out because the next thing I know, the van is filled with light. Sunlight. I wake up still clutching my knife. My doors are locked. My keys are still in the ignition. My phone is in my lap, battery at 23%. I risk a glance outside. The air smells like pine, damp earth. A perfect morning. There's no sign of them. No footprints. No handprints on the glass. It's like they were never here. But I know they were. I know they're still out there. Because my van still won't start. And I know, tonight, the knock will come again. I never grew up in what you'd call a loving household. Sure, the estate was massive, old money running through its veins, but warmth? Kindness? Those were things my family never had use for. My father drank too much. My mother was always one moment away from shattering something, preferably one of my belongings, or better yet me. And my brother Todd? He didn't need a reason to be cruel. He just was. So, I learned young. If I wanted to survive, I had to make myself small, unnoticeable. That meant finding places to hide. And in a house that had been in our family since the late 1700s, there were plenty of places to choose from. But as I would come to realize, some places weren't meant to be found. Todd was almost 18. In our family, that meant one thing: inheritance. The house, the land, the wealth, it all went to the eldest son upon his 18th birthday. My parents were already packing up, planning their move to a more comfortable place in the city, leaving Todd as the new master of the estate. And what was to become of me, the unwanted little brother? Well, Todd had plans, and those plans involved me living in the abandoned servants' quarters, tucked away on the farthest edge of the property, like some discarded piece of furniture. I tried to protest, but words meant nothing in our house. My lip was already split from my last attempt at talking back. So, I did what I always did. I hid. My most recent hiding spot was a linen closet in the basement, cramped but quiet, the thick wooden door muffling the world outside. But that night, as I sat curled in the dark, trying to make myself invisible, I heard it. A creak. Not the usual kind. The house was old. It made noises. This was different. Intentional. Then I saw it. An eye, peering at me through the sliver of the door. Watching. I froze, breath caught in my throat. The eye was wrong. Cloudy. Inhuman. I pressed my weight against the door, bracing myself for the worst. It never tried to open the door, but it knocked. And knocked. Sometimes it was right behind me. Sometimes farther away. Heavy, urgent, like something with too many hands was trying to find a way in. At some point, exhaustion won out over fear, and I must have fallen asleep because the next thing I knew, Todd was kicking the closet door open. "Tim, get your ass out of there, you little freak." But the door, what was left of it, was shredded. Splintered wood, deep gouges running down its length. Like something had been clawing to get in. I spent the rest, and I had no choice but to go to bed. I barely slept. Every creak of the house sent my heart racing. And then, just as I was drifting off, another creak from inside my closet. I didn't move at first, just peered out from under the covers. Nothing. But then, as my eyes adjusted to the dark, I saw him. He wasn't just standing in my closet. He was hanging. His feet didn't touch the ground, his limbs stretched too long, his neck bent at an unnatural angle, like a broken marionette. I wanted to scream, to run, but all I could do was stare as his jaw slowly unhinged, his mouth moving like he was trying to form words. But nothing came out, just choked, gurgled gasps. Then suddenly, he screamed, a guttural, raw, agonized wail that sent every nerve in my body alight with terror. He lurched forward, and I dove beneath the covers, squeezing my eyes shut until morning. But it didn't stop. The figures, they were always there, watching, peering through my window from the third floor, standing in the kitchen when I turned the corner, waiting. I was losing my mind, seeing them everywhere, hearing whispers in the halls, until one night I snapped. The tall man returned, looming at the foot of my bed. He crept closer, his presence draining the warmth from the room. And I broke. "What do you want?" For the first time, he reacted, his head tilted, and then, slowly, he pointed to the basement. I don't know why I followed him. Maybe I had no other choice. He led me down into the dark, deeper than I had ever gone before. And then he revealed it, a hidden hatch in the floor. With a long, skeletal finger, he unlocked it. Inside were papers, hundreds of them, old, yellowed documents. And as I read, my stomach turned to ice. This house, my family, it had all been built on a deal. A sacrifice. The wealth wasn't passed down to the eldest son. It was given to the one who survived. The youngest child always disappeared. One fell from a window. Another was found hanging in his bedroom. A girl, poisoned by a special cake. It was all there recorded, as if history was waiting for me to join them. And then I realized they weren't haunting me. They were warning me. I looked up, and they were all there. The tall man, the girl with blood-stained lips, the creature outside my window. They were my family, and they wanted justice. The woman with the torn mouth handed me a shovel and pointed outside. I didn't need to ask. It took hours digging through the frozen ground. But I found them. Bones. So many bones. Tossed into a mass grave like they were nothing. Like I would have been. One by one, I returned their skulls to them. And as I did, I watched as they changed. Their twisted forms began to heal. Their eyes, once hollow, filled with something almost human. Is that it? I whispered. Are you free now? The tall man, his head now properly set, smiled. A sad, knowing smile. Not all of us. He said, there is still one youngest son left to save. That was the last thing he said before they vanished. But I knew where they were going. Todd never made it to his 18th birthday. My parents never got to enjoy their retirement. I don't know what happened to them. I just know they were gone. And for the first time in my life, I was free. I still live in the estate. I know every creaky board, every hidden corner, and I'm no longer afraid of the whispers in the dark. I know it's just my family, saying hello. I always thought grief would fade, that time would dull the edges, that the silence would become less suffocating. But it hasn't. Every night, I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, still haunted by the same thought. You were here, and now you're not. It's been 5 years. 5 years since I buried you. 5 years since I stood in the rain, surrounded by black-clad strangers murmuring condolences that meant nothing. 5 years since I whispered my last goodbye. And yet, I still hear your voice. At first, it was just a whisper, a trick of the mind, I told myself. The kind of auditory illusion that loneliness breeds. I catch myself murmuring your name, expecting only silence in return. But then there it was, a soft chuckle, a hello, love, a voice so unmistakably yours that it sent a shudder down my spine. I froze. My heart pounded against my ribs like it wanted out. I told myself it wasn't real. It couldn't be real. The brain clings to the familiar, even in loss. It was just grief playing tricks on me. Then came the dreams. They weren't like normal dreams, hazy and fragmented. No, these were vivid, real. I could feel the warmth of your hands, the weight of your fingers tracing absent-minded circles on my skin, the soft way you used to laugh at your own bad jokes. We talked for hours, the way we used to before everything fell apart. But the strangest thing? You never seemed to remember that you were dead. You've been gone a long time, I whispered once, my voice cracking under the weight of the words. How are you here? You just smiled, the same reassuring smile you always had. But there was something off about it now. I'm here because you're still waiting for me. That was the first moment I felt it, the wrongness, the quiet, creeping sense that something was not as it seemed. At first, I dismissed it. I wanted to believe. I wanted to hold on to the illusion that you were still here, still tethered to this world, still with me. But as the days passed, the conversations grew more frequent. It wasn't just in dreams anymore. I would hear you during the day. Your voice would come from the other room, casual, familiar, like you'd just stepped inside from work. Sometimes I'd hear your laughter in the kitchen, just out of sight, or a whisper right behind me, too close, like you were leaning in. But no matter how quickly I turned around, no matter how much I searched, I could never find you. Then the messages started. I woke up one morning to find my phone screen on. A text notification sat there, waiting. My heart stopped when I saw the name. You. I almost dropped the phone. It wasn't possible. Your number had been disconnected years ago. I had deleted it. But there it was clear as day. The message was simple. Did you miss me? My hands shook as I opened the message thread. It was empty. No old texts, no call history, nothing. Just that single message, sitting there like a challenge. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Then another message came. Why aren't you answering? I shut the phone off, left it face down on the table, walked away. But later that night, when I turned it back on, there were dozens of messages. Talk to me. You used to talk to me. Are you still mad? You need to let me in. I felt sick. My hands trembled so badly that I almost dropped the phone. And then, right before I could turn it off again, the last message came through. I'm coming home. That night, I heard footsteps in the hall. They weren't loud, not at first, just a quiet creak. Then another, and another. I sat up in bed, straining to listen. The house was silent, but the air felt wrong. Heavy, as if something unseen was pressing down on my chest. I forced myself to breathe, gripping the covers so tightly my knuckles turned white. And then, right outside my bedroom door, I heard it. A knock. Not a gentle one. Not a question. A demand. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then your voice. Let me in. My entire body locked up. The voice was muffled, just beyond the wooden frame. But it was unmistakable. It was you. But it wasn't. There was something in the tone. Something empty. Like someone trying to imitate you, but missing the subtleties. I squeezed my eyes shut, forcing myself to stay still. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. I know you're in there. The voice continued, light, almost teasing. I know you can hear me. I clenched my jaw, said nothing. Then, for the first time, you sounded angry. Stop pretending. Stop ignoring me. The door rattled, the wood groaning under the pressure. I nearly screamed, but just as suddenly as it had started, the noise stopped. Silence fell over the house. I sat there for hours, shaking, listening, waiting. When morning came, I found my phone on the floor, screen cracked. A single new message. You shouldn't have ignored me. I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know how to make it stop. Because now, I see you in the reflections. In the windows at night when I pass by. In the darkened TV screen when it's off. You're always there, smiling, watching. And every night, I hear the knock. Every night, the voice returns. Let me in.